the greatest show on turf.
The show opened in the most glittery venue of them all, Las Vegas, where the Bears encountered only their third Division 1A opponent ever. The UNLV Runnin' Rebels had just won the national championship in basketball and entered the season with high football hopes under new coach Jim Strong. The Rebels took an early 3-0 lead, capitalizing on a Bears mistake. But soon, senior fullback Eric Jenkins began what would be a 1,000-yard rushing season with a 47-yard jaunt. And moments later, SMSU was atop the Rebels on a 6-yard run by Jenkins' backup, sophomore Damon Frost. 1990 was to be an injury-plagued season for senior captain Doug Adams, but he shone brightly in Vegas, his interception setting the stage for the Bears' second touchdown of the opening quarter. Before the half was out, SMSU would mount an 85-yard drive with Jenkins blasting the last 9 for a 21-3 halftime lead in the Nevada desert. Several hundred SMSU alumni and fans were relaxing in their team's success with a 24-3 advantage late in the third quarter. But soon the Bears were back on their heels, holding off the rampaging Rebels, who scored 3 unanswered touchdowns to tie the game with 7 minutes still to be played. UNLV took advantage of one deflected pass for an interception and another for the second of those 3 touchdowns. But at crunch time, this confident SMSU team, coming off a playoff appearance the year before, responded like the champions they would again prove themselves to be, marching the length of the field in seemingly effortless style to score the decisive touchdown on an 8-yard run by quarterback DeAndre Smith. The Bears rolled the dice in Vegas and won their first ever victory against a Division 1A opponent.
Great job, Rodney. Ready to come back. Great job. We got us some 1A. We got us some 1A.
It was out of the frying pan and into the fire the next week against another 1A foe, the University of Tulsa Golden Hurricanes and their record-setting passer T.J. Rubley. Ironically, it was a much warmer night on the Oklahoma plains than it had been in the Nevada desert, and Rubley was smoking from the start. Trailing 7-0, the Bears failed to score the tying touchdown early in the game, and Tulsa responded with a back-breaking 95-yard drive. They would lead 21-0 before SMSU got back in the contest on a 59-yard touchdown strike from Smith to senior wideout Randy Rayford.
Fires over the middle. Rayford is wide open. Touchdown. Rayford to the 20, to the 10. Touchdown, Southwest Missouri State. I called it.
Ball movement was not the Bears' problem this night. They would roll up over 550 total yards on the evening. But a promising drive ended before halftime when they were ruled short on a 4th and 2. Even later in the half, another march to the Tulsa 10 was stopped by a fumble, and the Bears trailed badly 31-7 at the half. The next 30 minutes were an entirely different story as SMS roared back. Fleet Travis Ezzard on the receiving end of a 42-yard strike from Smith. And junior halfback Sean Cooper going 28 yards for a score.
28-yard line. DeAndre with a play fake. Throws downfield. Has a man wide open at the 10. At the 5. It's a touchdown. Sean Cooper. Sean Cooper for the touchdown.
The Bears had sliced the 4-touchdown deficit in half, and nearly 9 minutes still remained in the third quarter. But Rubley and the Hurricanes would have enough to hold off the Bears by the final score of 41-28. Still, DeAndre had passed for a school record 405 yards, the first 400-yard game in SMSU history, and amassed a record 469 yards of total offense. The Bears had 3 receivers catch at least 7 passes, led by Rayford with 8 for 142 yards. 1-1 start against major college opposition, the Bears began defense of their Gateway Conference title with a night game in Terre Haute against Indiana State. This was one of only 2 Gateway venues in which SMSU had never won a football game. And for much of the night, the potential existed for that trend to continue. The defense played well, but the special teams gave up a big play in the first half when Indiana State's Von Ganaway broke a 77-yard punt return for a 14-6 Sycamore lead. The Bears had to be creative to start the offense. The patented shovel pass to Cooper, starting a drive right after that punt run back. And Jenkins rumbled for 29 yards to sustain the march. Transfer kicker Richard Grote would kick his 3rd field goal of the half, with the offense unable to get into the end zone. But that changed in the final minute of the first half, with Jenkins' 8-yard run bringing about a 16-13 SMS advantage. The teams traded scores in the 3rd quarter. The Bears' touchdown set up by Smith's brilliant 49-yard run down to the Sycamore 5-yard line.
Bears with Lewis split far side, Ezzard near side, and on 3rd down, quarterback draw. DeAndre breaks the tackle, and here he goes into Indiana State territory. 40, he's at the 30, has one man to beat. The 20, the 10, stumbles inside the 5 and down to the 4 of Indiana State.
Grote's school record 4th field goal of the game made it 26-20. But then eventual league rushing champion Derek Franklin raced 71 yards from scrimmage for a tie score in the 4th quarter. Then, like the Las Vegas game, the Bears did it when they had to. DeAndre directed a smash-mouth 49-yard drive, mostly on the strong backs of Jenkins and Frost, and scored the game-winning touchdown himself. The Bears had won on the banks of the Wabash 33-26. Jenkins finished with a career-high 171 yards on the ground. Into the season, the team got to perform before the home folks on September 22nd against Austin Peay, a team that had gone winless in 1989. They would do so again this year with the help of the Bears, who held the Governors to just 200 yards of total offense in a 34-7 rout. Smith found Cooper for 41 yards on the Bears' first possession, which took only 3 plays to produce a score. Before the first period had ended, a St. Louis freshman had turned in one of the spectacular plays of the season.
To Grad Wright, they block it well, and he gets off a high sailing kick that drives Calhoun back to his 33. Running laterally, 35, now squares up, 40, hurdles a tackle with the 45, and he's in the clear at the 50. Down the far sidelines at the 40. He may go. He's at the 10. He is gone. A touchdown for Chuck Calhoun.
That was a school record for longest punt return, and Calhoun would break the single-season punt return yardage mark as well. A redshirt freshman from St. Louis, Anthony Piggies, would shine with a 43-yard reception, setting up the Bears' 3rd score. Piggies and Cooper would prove adept at getting open on the wheel route, the big play of the season's first half. Piggies and Smith both scored on short runs 2 minutes apart in the 3rd period. And it was another successful opening night at Briggs, played before the first crowd of over 10,000 in the stadium's history. The second of 3 straight home games brought Washburn University to town, and the Division II Ichabod showed signs of an early self-destruction, losing a fumble deep in their own territory. Smith scored on a 16-yard keeper as the Bears took advantage. Early in the 2nd quarter, Calhoun returned a punt to the Washburn 45. The 1989 champion Bears had featured 2 explosive senior halfbacks in Phil Collins and Tony Gilbert. Rodney McConaughey returned, but suffered a knee injury in the Tulsa game. Into the breach stepped Piggies and Sean Cooper, who took an option pitch from DeAndre down to the Washburn 3, setting up the Bears' 2nd touchdown. Less than 3 minutes later, Smith found the other new halfback, Piggies, for 53 yards. Again, the play carrying to the Ichabod 3. And the senior quarterback's third touchdown run of the half made it 21-0. Before the second quarter had ended, Jenkins had blasted in from 9 yards out for another score. And then, even for a 28-0 game, the half's final play had its own dramatics.
Snaps back, the ball's down, the kick is up. And how about that?
2 yards shy of the school record for field goal distance. Grote had made it 31-0. The starters retired for the evening at halftime, and reserve quarterback Paul Carney took over, flinging passes to transfer back Rod Edwards and scoring on a 10-yard run. The defense shut out Washburn, save for a late field goal thanks to senior linebacker Robert Harbold. Only 5'8", 178 pounds, but a punishing tackler with 16 stops on the night. The Bears coasted to a 38-3 victory. Appeared to be more daunting the following week as Southern Illinois came to town for a conference matchup. The Bears had dominated the recent series, but the Salukis had led Illinois 21-7 late in the first half of a game 2 weeks earlier. SMSU scored early on a 5-yard pass from Smith to senior Ken Kelly. In the second quarter, a roughing the kicker penalty against SIU sustained the Bears' drive, with Grote booting a chip shot field goal for a 10-0 lead. In the final minutes of the first half, though, the Bears ground the life out of Southern Illinois. Smith, the ringmaster, going 27 yards on a 3rd and 12 dash to energize the drive, and then Cooper receiving a 32-yard pass that carried down to the Saluki 5. On his way to a career record 40 touchdowns, DeAndre capped the march with a score just before the half. SIU quarterback Brian Downey came into the game having thrown for over 1,200 yards in 5 games and ranked 10th in the nation in total offense. The Bears totally contained him, holding him to 14 completions in 30 attempts for barely over 100 yards. Meanwhile, Smith directed a time-consuming 67-yard drive early in the second half, and the Bears led 24-0. DeAndre's third touchdown of the game completed the scoring, and the Bears were 2-0 in the Gateway after a solid 31-7 win over Southern. After 3 straight home wins, it was back on the road for a trip down south to Alcorn State in southern Mississippi. The Braves had been demolished at Briggs the year before, 59-19, but were not to fare much better at home. The Bears struck early and often. DeAndre Smith back to pass, throws downfield to a wide open receiver. Piggies at the 25, he's to the 15, the 10, the 5, it's a touchdown. It was 9-0 late in the first quarter when the sack master Michael Fox, playing in his home state, stripped Alcorn quarterback Reggie Martin of the ball, and Bill Walter made the recovery. Moments later, Rodney McConaughey, in his first action since injuring his knee in the Tulsa game, scored to make it 15-0. The defense was really coming into its own now. Through the 4-game stretch that ended at Alcorn, the Bears allowed a total of 2 touchdowns, and on this day, they pitched a shutout. Alcorn's most serious threat ended with a Mark Rohr interception in the SNS end zone. From there began a 99-yard drive late in the first half, culminating in Piggy's 6-yard run. It was 22-0, and the game was essentially over. Just as another Bear linebacker, Ken Braden, had done on SMSU's last trip to Mississippi, Jackson State in 1986, Keith Gatlin ran an intercepted pass back for a third-quarter touchdown. And in the end, the 38-0 win was SMSU's first road shutout since a 35-0 decision at Central Missouri State in 1984. Alcorn State was held to 64 yards rushing. The following week, it was back into conference play and the old irresistible force versus immovable object matchup as the league's best offensive team, SMS, faced the top defenders at Illinois State. But in the first quarter, both Bears units combined to make it look easy. The offense had to go only 52 yards for its first touchdown on a keep by DeAndre from 8 yards out. And they maneuvered just 41 yards for the second score. Sean Cooper doing the honors, thanks to the defense creating good field position. Before the first quarter was out, the offense had exploded, and the score went to 21-0. The wind was a factor on this blustery day in central Illinois, and the Redbirds scored on a long pass in the second quarter with the breeze now at their backs. But a recurring pattern then struck again. Headwind or not, the Bears mounted a long drive to score in the last 2.5 minutes of the first half for the 6th game in a row. 85 yards on this drive, with DeAndre going over for a 28-7 advantage. In the third quarter, the Bears scored 10 points in the span of 42 seconds. Cooper, whose 39 regular season catches was third most in school history, made his best one of the season in this game.
Jenkins, the single setback. Fake to Jenkins. DeAndre throws downfield. And a tremendous one-handed catch by Sean Cooper at the 35-yard line.
It set up Grote's short field goal for a 31-14 lead. Then, with the Bears already in command, the rich got richer. Smith struck quickly with a pass to McConaughey, and it appeared the route was on at 38-14 going into the fourth quarter. But some old memories of fourth period misfortunes briefly recurred as Illinois State scored 16 unanswered points to pull within 38-30, onside kicking for a chance at tying the game. The Bears recovered the kick, however, and Eric Jenkins got the last 32 of his 149 yards, putting the capper on a 45-30 victory.
Illinois State 32, and here's Jenkins rumbling over the left side. He may go. He's at the 15, the 10. He outruns them all.
Illinois State had allowed a total of just 41 points in its 4 previous games. It was back to Briggs for homecoming against Western Illinois, and the largest crowd ever to witness a sports event in southwest Missouri. 10,721 on hand for the festivities. There's no place like home was the theme of the day, but for 30 minutes, the Leathernecks made themselves right at home, tying the game 7-7 on a touchdown late in the half. The defense righted the ship early in the second half, though, stuffing Western and getting the ball for DeAndre on the visitors' side of midfield. Smith directed the 49-yard drive, key play, an option pitch to Cooper. And Damon Frost blasted in for the go-ahead score. Next, it was safety man Marcus Shipp's turn to shine. His first interception of the year, setting up another scoring opportunity. Jenkins covered the final 7 yards, and the heavily favored Bears were pulling away. In the first 30 seconds of the final quarter, Smith ended all doubt.
Jenkins, DeAndre with lots of time. He's going up top, throwing for Ezzard in the end zone. He's got it! Touchdown!
Reserve quarterback Cleveland Antoine, a redshirt freshman, made it 4 unanswered touchdowns when he got his chance to run the club. And the Bears had scored a solid 35-14 victory over Western Illinois, the only team Jess Branch had never defeated in Springfield. The Bears stood 8-1, ranked second in the nation, going north for the Gateway Conference showdown with Northern Iowa. The Unidome was hopping on November 3rd, with the largest crowd in the building's 14-year history convened for the battle. The game would decide the league's automatic playoff representative in Division I AA. And in a deafening din, the Panthers went deep on the first play from scrimmage, carrying inside the SMSU 10-yard line. The Bears held them to a field goal, though, and later in the first period began a resourceful drive of their own, converting 2 fourth downs along the way. McConaughey scored from a yard out, and that stood up for a 7-3 halftime advantage. The third quarter belonged to Northern Iowa, Division IAA's fourth-rated passer Jay Johnson hitting Richard Welbrock for the go-ahead score. Followed later by a three-pointer from the nation's top field goal kicker, Brian Mitchell. But the Bears answered those 10 points with 10 of their own in the fourth quarter. A Johnson fumble leading to Grote's 40-yard field goal, his second longest of the year. Then, mostly unable to hear the snap count and the reverberating roar of the crowd, SMSU managed to drive it in from 44 yards out. The big play being a 3rd and 17 pass to McConaughey for a first down. It was 17-13 Bears with just over 3 minutes to play. Northern Iowa had to have a touchdown to pull it out. And they got it on 4th and goal from the SMS 6. The Panthers had won a classic, 20-17, and the Bears had to have a home field win to gain a co-championship and assure themselves of a playoff berth. Mid-November, and very important Parents' Weekend on the SMSU campus saw gorgeous fall weather in the Ozarks, and the Bears were a team on a mission. They'd gotten a taste of national playoff competition and worn championship rings on their fingers from 1989. Those rings were set aside with the opening of the 1990 campaign, but the fingers were aching for some new jewelry to signify another championship. Michael Fox set the tone with an early sack of Eastern Illinois quarterback Lee Borkowski. The Bears recovered at the Panther 19, and McConaughey scored moments later. The offense had to cover an even lesser distance for its second touchdown, thanks to the brilliant work of the little freshman punt return man, Calhoun.
He needs a big punt here to get Eastern Illinois out of a serious jam. Low snap, but Pindar gets off a high spiraling kick. It sends Chucky Calhoun back to the 50-yard line. Here goes Chucky. He's to the 45, to the 40. Cuts inside a hole at the 35. Still on his feet at the 30. Calhoun to the 25. Spins away to the 20. Still on his feet at the 15. And is finally rocked and thrown down at the 12-yard line. But what a run by Chucky Calhoun.
Again, it was McConaughey for the score and a 14-0 lead. The offense resumed the midseason pattern of a score just before the half. Ken Kelly hauling in Smith's pass for a 21-0 lead. The second half would be notable for many things. The Bears scored 3 touchdowns on 4th down. McConaughey going over for his 3rd score of the day, making it 28-0. In the fourth quarter, with the reserve skill people in the game, but still the first-team line, Antoine and Rod Edwards hooked up on a sensational scoring play on 4th down, covering 38 yards. And in the game's final minutes, with all reserves on the field for the Bears, they scored on 4th and goal from the Panther 19. Victor Smith wouldn't be denied the end zone. Eastern scored in the last 17 seconds to break the shutout, but the Bears had rung up their highest point total of the season and had their biggest victory margin ever over Eastern Illinois, 48-6. It was their 13th straight home field win, a record in 50-year-old Briggs Stadium. And it made the 1989 and 90 Bears the first back-to-back conference champions in the 83-year football history of the school. Jess Branch also became the first coach at SMSU to win 2 conference championships. The school's 8 previous league titles had come under 8 different head coaches. There was little doubt that the Bears' 9-2 record, Gateway Co-Championship, and number 6 national ranking would earn them another berth in the postseason playoffs of Division IAA. A year earlier, with an identical record and similar ranking, SMSU had hosted the University of Maine and won the game 38-35 in the last 8 seconds. It was considered by many the greatest game in SMSU football history. The day of decision arrived, and the verdict of the 1AA Football Committee was that the Bears would again play host to a state university, this time from Idaho. And the Vandals would swoop down from the Northwest with a high-powered offense, the second highest scoring team in the nation, and with the country's top rusher and top receiver. The Bears' defense forced an early Idaho mistake with a patented Michael Fox sack of the football. Eventually, Richard Grote kicked a short field goal for a 3-0 SMSU lead. The Vandals struck back in just 1 minute, though, with quarterback Steve Nolan passing to Chris Taylor for a 56-yard touchdown. Then, after a Bears turnover, 1,400-yard running back Devon Pierce made it 14-3, just 51 seconds after Idaho's first touchdown. The scoring battle had been joined, and the Bears would respond with a quick strike of their own. DeAndre Smith covering 31 yards for his 40th career touchdown before the first quarter had ended. Idaho regained an 11-point lead in the opening seconds of the second quarter with Nolan throwing his second touchdown pass. But the aerial dynamics were not strictly on the Vandals' side. Anthony Piggies didn't quit on one pass attempt, and his miraculous catch set the stage for Rodney McConaughey.
At the 17, he runs the option. Pitches it to McConaughey. Has the corner. The 15, the 10, the 5. Touchdown! All right. Touchdown, Rodney McConaughey!
The game settled down the rest of the half, which ended with Idaho leading 21-17. But soon the fireworks resumed. Pierce scoring for the Vandals on a 10-yard run. Eric Jenkins, 78 seconds later, going 50 yards up the middle for a Bears touchdown. Later in the third period, the Vandals, led by the 13 pass receptions of the nation's best, Casey Dunn, scored again. But Smith, as he did for 4 years, then averted near disaster and came up with another huge play. The Bears capitalized as McConaughey blasted in from 7 yards out. And a subsequent 2-point conversion run by Piggies drew the home forces to within 3. The tying 3 points came on the first play of the fourth quarter. Wrote good from 24 into a swirling wind. Nearly 15 minutes remained, and few would have believed that the scoring of touchdowns was at an end. But that proved to be the case. 2 Idaho field goals left the Invaders up by 6 when the Bears mounted a final assault in the last 2.5 minutes. Smith led them to a first down at the Vandal 44 with time to pull the victory out of the fire. But Idaho's defense rose to the occasion. And on 4th and 11, the Bears' season ended a foot short of a possible quarterfinal berth. 18 seniors had played their final game for the Bears, 7 of them making first team All-Gateway Conference. Defensively, senior end Michael Fox was a first-team All-Conference choice, along with juniors Bill Walter and Marcus Shipp. On offense, 60% of the offensive line received first-team honors. Tackle Chris Kapilovic, guard Chris Reed, and center John Wilcox. While wide receiver Ken Kelly, 1,000-yard fullback Eric Jenkins, and DeAndre Smith were first-teamers as well. Smith ended his incredible career as the school's all-time leader in total offense, scoring, touchdowns, and pass completion percentage. A master at directing Branch's ball control offense, he was also adept at the big play. The 18 touchdown passes Smith threw in his career averaged 37 yards in length. His junior and senior seasons, he was voted Gateway Conference Offensive Player of the Year. The 1989 and 90 Bears won 19 games, the most ever by SMS teams in a 2-year span. Going back to mid-1988, SMSU had won 13 of its last 15 conference games, and of course the back-to-back championships and playoff appearances, both school football firsts. The dream of the ultimate national glory was not achieved, but high expectations are a double-edged sword in sports, and sometimes the toughest task is being expected to win and then doing it. The 1990 football Bears did it, and wrote their names forever in the record books and in the hearts of the thousands of faithful who love the Bears.